That $3,000 credit card balance you've been carrying, the one you make minimum payments on every month and try not to think about. If you keep paying the minimum, you won't finish paying it off until 2043, 17 years from now, for something you bought and probably can't even remember. And that's not the scary part. The scary part is that by the time you're done, you'll have paid over $8,000 for that $3,000 purchase. That's not a credit card. That's a time prison. And someone designed it that way on purpose. Hey everybody, it's Billy. This is part 2 of Personal Finance 101. And if part 1 was about building your foundation, this one is about protecting it. Because here's what nobody in personal finance wants to say out loud. The credit card industry, the auto loan industry, and the insurance industry have spent billions of dollars building systems that are specifically designed to keep you confused, overpaying, and in debt. Minimum payments aren't there to help you. They're calculated to maximize the lender's profit by stretching your debt across decades. Variable interest rates aren't an accident. They're a feature that makes your balance quietly grow while you think you're handling it. The fine print on insurance policies isn't complicated because it has to be. It's complicated because confusion benefits the company, not you. You're not bad with debt. You were never supposed to be good at it. The people who lend you money spent more on figuring out how to keep you in debt than you will ever earn in your lifetime. And today I'm going to show you exactly how they do it and how to beat them at their own game. In this episode, we're covering 3 things. First, the 2 types of credit, installment and revolving, and why understanding them is like knowing the rules before you sit at the table. Second, 2 proven debt repayment strategies that actually get you out. And I'm going to translate your debt into years of your life so you can feel what it's really costing you. And third, insurance. The section everyone skips that could save you from losing everything you've built. There's a story later in this video about a family who did everything right financially and still got wiped out by a single bill. Don't skip to it. It hits harder if you get there in order. Let's go. Problem challenge. The game was rigged before you sat down. In part 1, we talked about how nobody taught you the basics of money. Well, here's the next layer of that problem. Not only were you never taught, but the companies you borrow from were counting on that. They built their entire business model around the assumption that you wouldn't fully understand the deal you were signing. Think about the last time you applied for a credit card. Did someone sit you down and explain that if you carry a balance at 24% interest, a $1,000 purchase quietly becomes $2,000 over time? Did they explain that the minimum payment is designed to keep you in debt for as long as mathematically possible? Did they mention that the interest rate could change? Go up. Without you doing anything differently? No. They gave you a shiny card, a credit limit that felt like a gift, and the phrase minimum payment due. And that phrase, minimum payment due, is one of the most profitable pieces of language in the history of finance. Because it sounds like the right amount. It sounds responsible. It sounds like what you're supposed to pay. But it's the amount designed to keep you paying the longest. It's the amount that maximizes their revenue from your debt. I'm not saying credit is evil. It's not. Credit is a tool. But it's a tool that was handed to you with no instructions, by someone who profits when you use it wrong. So let's fix that right now. 2 types of credit know the rules before you play. Every time you borrow money, it falls into one of 2 categories, installment credit or revolving credit. These aren't just labels. They're completely different games with completely different rules. And if you don't know which one you're playing, you're going to lose. Installment credit is a loan for a fixed amount repaid in regular payments over a set period. Think of it like a countdown. You borrow a specific sum, you agree to a schedule, and every month you make a payment. Part goes to the loan balance, part goes to interest, until it hits 0 and it's done. Mortgages, car loans, student loans, personal loans. These are all installment credit. The key feature is predictability. You know exactly what you owe, exactly what you pay each month, and exactly when you'll be finished. Here's the analogy that makes this click. Installment credit is like a taxi ride. You get in, you know where you're going, you know roughly what it costs, and when you arrive, the meter stops. Ride over. Done. Revolving credit is completely different. Instead of borrowing a fixed amount once, you get access to a credit line. A pool of money you can dip into again and again up to a limit. The most common example is a credit card. You spend, you repay some of it, the available credit opens back up, and you can spend again. There's no fixed end date, no countdown, no finish line. Revolving credit is like leaving a tab open at a bar. It's flexible. It's convenient. But if you're not paying attention, that tab can climb to a number that makes your stomach drop, and it's still running. Here's the part that catches people off guard. Revolving credit usually comes with variable interest rates, meaning the rate can change. And credit card rates are notoriously brutal, often 20 to 30% per year. If you don't pay your full balance every month, interest gets charged on whatever you're carrying. A $1,000 balance you ignore for a year at 24% doesn't stay at $1,000. It grows, quietly, while you sleep. Neither type of credit is inherently bad. A mortgage is installment credit, and it's how most people buy a home. A credit card is revolving credit, and it can be a genuinely useful tool when used deliberately. The danger isn't the type. It's using either one without understanding the cost. And the cost always comes back to one number, the interest rate. Every loan has one. Lower rate means the loan costs less over time. Higher rate means more. Sometimes dramatically more. Always compare rates before you borrow. Shopping around for a better mortgage or personal loan rate takes an hour and can save you thousands over the life of the loan. Debt repayment your escape plan. Okay, so let's say you already have debt. Maybe it's a student loan, a credit card balance, a car payment, or all three. You're making your minimums every month, and it feels like you're pouring water into a bucket with a hole in the bottom. Sound familiar? Here's why it feels that way, because that's exactly what's happening. Minimum payments are designed to cover mostly interest with just a sliver going toward the actual balance. You're not paying off your debt. You're renting it. Step 1, and most people never do this because it's uncomfortable, is to write it all down. Every debt. The total balance, the interest rate, and the minimum monthly payment. Get it all on one page. I know it feels scary, but you can't escape a building you refuse to look at the map for. Once you have that list, you pick one of two proven strategies. The avalanche method. You take every extra dollar you have, beyond your minimums, and throw it all at the debt with the highest interest rate first. Once that one's gone, you roll that payment into the next highest rate, and so on. This is the mathematically optimal strategy. It saves you the most money in interest and gets you out fastest in raw dollars. Let's put it on the whiteboard. Say you have 3 debts. Credit card, $3,000 at 24%. Car loan, $5,000 at 9%. Student loan, $8,000 at 6%. With the avalanche, you attack the credit card first. Because 24% is the most expensive money you're borrowing. You still make minimums on the car loan and student loan. When the card is dead, that freed up payment slams into the car loan, then the student loan. Maximum efficiency. The snowball method takes a different approach. Instead of targeting the highest rate, you target the smallest balance first, regardless of rate. Pay minimums on everything else, throw everything extra at the smallest debt. When it's gone, roll that momentum into the next smallest. The snowball isn't the cheapest mathematically, but it has a secret weapon, psychology. Paying off a debt completely, even a small one, feels incredible. That win gives you fuel. It builds confidence. And for a lot of people, staying motivated is the actual hardest part. So which should you use? If you're disciplined and numbers-driven, the avalanche saves the most money. If you've tried to pay off debt before and lost steam, the snowball's quick wins might be what keeps you in the fight. The best strategy is always the one you'll actually stick to. Now, here's where I want to reframe something. Because I don't think most people truly feel what debt is costing them when it's expressed in dollars and percentages. So let me express it in something you can't get back: time. That $3,000 credit card at 24% with minimum payments? That's 17 years of your life. You'll be making payments on that balance until 2043. That $5,000 car loan? If you stretch it to 72 months to keep the payments low, you're paying on a car that might not even be running by the time you own it. Every debt you carry isn't just a number on a statement. It's a chunk of your future self's paychecks that are already spoken for. Months and years of earning that go to paying for the past instead of building the future. When you think about debt as time, not money, the urgency changes. You stop asking, can I afford the monthly payment? And start asking, how many months of my life is this purchase going to cost me? And that question changes everything. 3 rules while you're in repayment mode. 1. Stop adding new debt. You can't drain a bathtub while the tap is running. 2. Every time unexpected money lands. A bonus, a tax refund, a birthday cheek. Put a meaningful chunk of it directly at your debt. Redirect it before it hits your spending account and you'll never miss it. 3. If your debt feels genuinely overwhelming, reach out to a nonprofit credit counseling service. They can help you build a structured repayment plan and sometimes negotiate lower rates on your behalf. There's no shame in asking for help. The shame is in pretending the problem isn't there. Insurance, the section that could save everything. Now let's talk about the part of personal finance that nobody wants to watch. And that's exactly why you need to. Insurance. I know. It sounds boring. It's a monthly bill for something you hope you never use. But here's the story I promised you at the beginning. And it's going to change how you think about this. Imagine a family. 2 working parents, 2 kids. They did everything this series teaches. They budgeted. They saved. They paid off their credit cards. They had a solid emergency fund. About 4 months of expenses. From the outside, they were doing great. Then one of them got into a car accident. Not their fault. They had auto insurance. But only the state minimum liability coverage. The medical bills for the other driver came to over $180,000. Their policy covered $50,000. The remaining $130,000? That was on them. Their emergency fund was gone in a day. Their savings, gone. They took on debt they'd spent years avoiding. One event, one afternoon, and years of careful financial planning erased. Because of a single line in a policy they never fully read. That's not a hypothetical. Variations of that story happen every single day, and it's why insurance isn't an expense. It's a financial safety net. Without one, a single bad day can undo everything. 3 key terms you need to know. Premium. That's what you pay the insurance company to keep your coverage active. Think of it as a subscription fee for protection. Deductible. That's the amount you pay out of pocket before insurance kicks in. If you have a $1,500 deductible on a $4,000 medical bill, you pay the first $1,500 and insurance covers the rest. Coverage. That's what your policy actually protects you against. Every policy has inclusions and exclusions, and reading these before you sign is non-negotiable. Here's what you need as a young professional. Health insurance. Absolutely non-negotiable. One emergency room visit without coverage can financially devastate you. If your employer offers it, understand your plan. If you're self-employed, explore the marketplace. Don't skip this one. Auto insurance. Legally required to drive. At minimum, you need liability coverage, which covers damage you cause to others. But you should also understand collision coverage for your own car and comprehensive coverage for theft, weather, and falling objects. If the family in that story had better liability limits, their financial life would still be intact. Renters or homeowners insurance. One of the most undervalued types of protection. Renters insurance is often just $15 to $30 a month and covers your belongings against fire, theft, and water damage, plus liability if someone gets hurt in your apartment. If you own a home, your mortgage lender requires homeowners insurance. But make sure you understand what it covers and what it doesn't. Most standard policies don't include flood or earthquake damage without extra riders. Life insurance matters once you have people depending on your income. A term life policy is the simplest and most affordable option. You pay a fixed premium for a set number of years, and if you pass away during that term, your family receives a payout. It's not fun to think about. But leaving the people you love financially unprotected is worse. Disability insurance is the one most people forget until it's too late. You are statistically far more likely to become temporarily disabled during your working years than to die. Disability insurance replaces a portion of your income if you can't work due to illness or injury. Check if your employer offers it. If they don't, look into it yourself. One final rule. Review your coverage once a year or any time a major life event happens. New job, marriage, new baby, buying a home, significant income change. Your coverage needs to grow as your life does. Insurance won't make you wealthy, but it'll make sure one bad event doesn't destroy everything you've built. The real cost of borrowing. Here's what I want you to take away from this entire episode. Every financial product you use, every credit card, every loan, every insurance policy was designed by someone, and that someone had a goal. Their goal was not to help you. Their goal was to make money from you. That doesn't make them evil. It makes them a business. But it means you cannot walk into these transactions uninformed and expect to come out ahead. When you understand installment versus revolving credit, you know which game you're playing before you sit down. When you have a debt repayment strategy, avalanche or snowball, you have an escape plan instead of just good intentions. When you understand your insurance, you have a safety net instead of a prayer. And when you start measuring debt in time instead of dollars, when you look at that credit card balance and think that's 3 years of my life instead of that's $3,000, something shifts in your gut. You stop treating borrowing as normal and start treating it as a sentence you can shorten, a sentence you can end, a sentence you never have to accept again. Let's lock it in. Installment credit is fixed, predictable, and finite, great for planned purchases like a home or a car. Revolving credit is flexible, but dangerous if you carry a balance because high variable interest rates quietly grow what you owe. Always understand the cost before you borrow. Have a debt repayment strategy, not just good intentions. The avalanche saves the most money. The snowball builds the most momentum. Pick the one you'll commit to and stop adding new debt while you're paying the old stuff down. And insurance is not optional. Understand your premiums, deductibles, and coverage. At minimum, have health, auto, and renters or homeowners insurance. Add life and disability as your responsibilities grow. One uninsured event can erase years of progress. And the story I told you proves it. You came into this episode carrying debt you didn't fully understand, exposed to risks you hadn't thought about, and playing a game where the other side knew the rules and you didn't. You're leaving with the rules. Now use them. I'm Billy, and I probably spend too much time thinking about why the financial products most people use every single day were specifically engineered to be confusing. And what it costs a person when they finally realize the rules were never explained on purpose. If that just landed somewhere uncomfortable, subscribe. Because that's exactly what we dig into here.